one and all. I am so glad that you are with us today. My name is Andrew Recinos, and I am the president of the Tessitura Network, a nonprofit technology services and community company with a simple mission to advance the business of arts and culture. I am so excited because today is the first of our new Innovators in Conversation series, an opportunity for all of you to hear directly from arts and culture leaders from around the globe as they navigate this uncertain time for our sector. Now, our inaugural guest is Scott Stulen, who is CEO and president of the Philbrook Museum in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I've known Scott for a few years now, but I became convinced that he should be our first innovator when he posted this tweet about a week after the Philbrook was forced to close their doors due to the coronavirus pandemic. 10 things we need to be cool about as museums during this crisis. He started with this bit of real talk. Number one, things will be faster, messier, and less overthought than usual. Of course, my favorite is number 5. This is not in the employee handbook. I think you're going to enjoy meeting Scott today. Now, prior to coming to the Philbrook about 3.5 years ago, Scott was the curator of audience experiences and performances at the Indianapolis Museum of Art. He was also project director of mnartists.org at the Walker Arts Center, among many other museum gigs. And he is himself a visual artist, a writer, and a DJ. Now, most famously, he is responsible for the insanely popular Internet Cat Video Festival, which has now toured to over 200 cities in 13 countries. Scott has led the Philbrook for the last 3.5 years, and from the moment the coronavirus hit, the Philbrook has been a ubiquitous, pragmatic, and visionary presence in the cultural world turned upside down. They've launched programs large and small, including this one, featured in People magazine, asking folks to write letters to the Philbrook's 3 lonely garden cats. So, without any further ado, I am pleased to welcome Scott Stulen. Scott, you can now join us on the virtual stage. Hi.
Hello, thank you for the very kind introduction, and I'm honored to be your first guest on this series.
Well, thank you. Thank you for being here. So just looking through your career milestones, I have to note that there's a bit of a similarity on kind of some of the bigger ones. And so my first question paraphrases Shakespeare a bit. Some men are born with cats, other men have cats thrust upon them. Are you naturally a cat person, Scott?
Honestly, no. And I was outed by the New York Times during the Cat Video Festival for not having a cat at home. And then what was interesting is when it came to Philbrook, and Philbrook has 3 garden cats that live in the garden. And we actually have one that's retired now, so there's 2 cats that are living in the garden. There was actually a rescue, and one of our staff members rescued 4 kittens from an area construction site, and they were down in our shop, and our kids kind of fell in love with 2 of them. So we adopted 2 cats from near the museum. So now we do have 2 cats, and I've had them for the last 3 years in our home. So I guess now I am a cat person.
You're legit now, so that's
yeah.
So we'll get into sort of some of the larger strategies that you're incorporating here in a moment. But you got some great press for the cat pen pal program. Can you just give us a little more background on that and how that came about?
Sure. We have a really creative team, and I feel very lucky to work with so many people that can come up with ideas like that, and then to be able to do it so quickly. So we came up with the idea. We thought it'd be interesting for people that might be lonely or want to just talk to our garden cats to write a letter to them, and it just instantly took off. And should have known, cat stuff just takes off. But we've gotten hundreds of letters that have come flowing in, everything from kids, but a lot of adults. And it's been interesting, a lot of the letters that you're seeing that people are using it almost like a therapy session to be able to talk to their cats, which is, I think it speaks a lot to the moment that we're in right now. And then we've had a team of staff members that have been writing back to the cats on their own personalized stationery. So if you're interested in writing to the cats, please do. We're still taking letters, and we will write back to you.
Oh my gosh. I mean, it's really lighthearted and a not very lighthearted moment. It would be easy to say that it's kind of a gimmick, a little bit of a clickbait kind of thing, but in talking with you and reading some of what you've written lately about Philbrook, my understanding is it's actually part of a larger strategy at the museum. I've got here from a recent blog post that you wrote, you said, it would be understandable to retreat inward, conserve resources, and focus on survival. Instead, Philbrook is looking outward to help our community and give back and continue our mission to bring people together even at a distance. And you go on to frame what you're calling fill the gaps. And I wondered if you could talk about this overall strategy, of which the cats are just, of course, one small part.
Sure. And so I think part of it is it would be natural to kind of just retreat right now and be very protective and kind of wait for this to kind of pass by. But for us, our mission is to make a more creative and connected community through art and gardens. And we decided early on that we were going to keep doing that. We were just going to shift platforms and shift some of the vehicles to do that. So the Fill the Gaps program came out of that. And it's 4 basic points. The first is that acknowledge what the real needs are right now, and that's helping people that may have COVID illnesses, and how do we kind of give some back to the community. So we're giving 10% of all of our membership proceeds during this period of time to the Tulsa United Way's COVID Relief Fund. So we're giving back to the community in that manner. Our second is that we have a garden, and there's a lot of food needs right now. So we've been partnering with food shelves here in Tulsa, and we're tripling the size of our vegetable garden, so making an enormous victory garden. We've already been harvesting from it, harvesting lettuce and other fast-growing crops, but we're planting fruit trees and a whole variety of vegetables and things out there they'll be producing throughout the year and being able to give hundreds and hundreds of pounds of food to the food shelf. And then the third is knowing that artists are really hurting right now too. So what manner can we help some artists? So we have a big platform with our social media and also with some of our retail through the shop. So we basically turned over that platform, and we're having artists be able to post their work through our artist marketplace and sell that work and keep 100% of those proceeds. We're basically a pass-through and a platform for that. So we launched that this past weekend, and we sold 5 artworks the first day. So that's been a way that we can kind of help artists out and continue on with that. And then the last is let's keep producing content and being a relevant museum even in this time where we're distant from each other, but it doesn't mean the content has to be distant. So we've launched a whole series of programs, which I'm happy to go into, that have kind of everything from curator tours to gardener tips to doing Netflix watch parties to having musicians be able to perform in our spaces. So it's been a whole variety of programming that we've done through that.
That is just fantastic and inspiring. And it seems like you've kind of hit the gas on a lot of things. I got to ask, so many cultural organizations are feeling so much pain right now, and loss of funding and loss of revenue. I mean, how is the Philbrook different, or what's happening there?
No, and I almost should have started this from the top, because I think it's really important, and we've been having so many of these webinars and things that all of us have been on constantly. I feel like I live on Zoom now, I think. But it's important to, I think, of the context that Philbrook as a museum is in the same spot most of you are, is that we are feeling the pain of this period of time. We have an endowment, but it is not enormous. It basically is about 17% of our annual operating fund. We get very little funding from city or state government. We're pretty much all privately funded. And a lot of that's through earned income, which is not coming in right now, and contributions. So we're feeling the pinch just like all the rest of you are. We've had to make major cuts. The day that we shut everything down was supposed to be a big opening that we're having here. We had our fundraiser, which is a big wine event, which generates about $3 million coming in to the museum, was supposed to be last weekend. And then it got pushed to August, and now we're actually pushing it to 2021. So that causes a lot of cash flow challenges, as you can imagine. And there's a whole lot of unknown. And we have had to furlough staff, sadly. And so we're in the same position a lot of other places are, but we're just choosing at this moment to that we're still going to keep doing our mission and pushing forward.
And of these initiatives that you've really just sort of spun up out of nowhere, I mean, what's working well? What maybe thought would work well but hasn't? Any initial thoughts on that?
Yeah, and I think it helps. I mean, the one thing is kind of setting a framework for it. And the first day that we knew that we were kind of heading into potentially closing down for a while, we assembled a cross-departmental team and basically said, here's the problem, how are we going to address it? And we started just spinning up ideas out of that. And the thing is with that is we basically compressed the whole period of time from when an idea can go to execution to be, instead of weeks or months, to hours. And knowing that if it basically doesn't cost anything, let's just try it and see what happens. So we've put a lot of things out there, and everything from our Museum Confidential podcast, which had existed before this, but kind of using that platform. But also when we could still do some things at the museum, we had curbside pickup for the shop. We took flowers that were growing in our gardens that nobody could see, and we're selling bouquets out front, but also had a cam in the garden so people could see the flowers when they couldn't be there. We've had our gardeners and horticulturists giving tips out in the garden. We've started a family art club, which has become incredibly popular, showing how-to videos of people to do things at home, which is wonderful. Jenny does such a good job with this. And we're doing like an art car parade coming up this weekend that's going to be going through seats that people can see from their porch. We've done, various things with musicians, and the big thing is we're paying all the artists that we're bringing in to do those programs, and so we're able to kind of support a little bit there too. Having sing-along Saturdays. This is Hot Toast, a music company, does kind of kids sing-alongs, which is happening on Saturdays, and we have a full kind of array of programming that's happening. So we're doing some standard things you'd expect, like curator tours and other talks that I think a lot of people are doing, but we're trying to have some playful things in there too and do some experiments. So we did a Netflix watch party last Friday. So we used the little plug-in app, and we invited some members to come and join, the curator and myself and a few other staff members. And we watched Bob Ross episodes and basically did almost like pop-up video with them, and which was totally fun. And again, almost no cost to try something like that. And we didn't have a huge, a group of people that were doing it, but those that did really enjoyed it. And we're learning from it as we go along. Now, not everything works. I'll be the first to tell you that it doesn't. And that's partly why you got to try a whole lot of stuff and be okay with failing. I did a little DJ session from our home here where I kind of picked some records and talked about them. And I think it was mostly family that was watching me. And so that's, there's going to be things like that too. And, in my career, I know that people have noted a lot of the highlights, the Cat Video Festival, that we had so many people show up from. There's a lot more programs that I had 4 people show up at that completely didn't work. There's one I go back to that is kind of like one of the big examples. When I was in Indy, we did a pump up the volume watch party that I wanted to do this 90s thing in the underground parking garage. And like, there was like 10 people there and the acoustics were awful. It was like a complete disaster. But we tried it and we learned from it. And we keep doing it.
So, I read a lot of what's, and I'm sure you do too, sort of out on the wires in the culture business right now. And there's the beginning of a conversation around why are we giving all this stuff away? Is it devaluing our work? You see the performing arts doing a whole bunch of streaming. I mean, you're giving a lot away right now. What is your take on that?
Well, I feel it's all going to come back to us. And I think it's also, you have to realize the marketplace and understand everybody's producing so much free content right now that the reality of putting up a paywall and trying to monetize some of this right now is going to be really fighting uphill on it. So it needs to be a longer range, I think, plan for this, and to learn how to use these platforms and things that we can continue after we kind of reopen and have some of these things extend. I think we're learning a lot about where audiences are willing to pay for things and what type of content that people want. We're just in this really strange period right now where the market's getting flooded with content.
Yeah.
And it's just understanding that we're all trying to kind of figure this out. I do think for performing arts groups in particular, it's going to be, there's as much benefit as there are some like concerns in all of this about how to still kind of have paid content, but also realizing that people are willing to pay for some things to come to their homes. We've bought some movies I know now for the kids to watch that I never would have paid for in the theater, but we did when they came to our home. So I think there's a positive to all of this too, is how we're kind of learning as we go along. But I think the one thing I do want to caution people is thinking that you're going to put up a YouTube channel and it's going to be this new funding stream to support a bunch of stuff going forward. Coming out of the cat video world, I can tell you people that have millions and millions of views on cat videos, which arts organizations would dream of having that many people look at. The money that they're generating from that is like $10,000, $15,000 off of 3 million views. So it's just to have a reality check a little bit about like being able to generate like YouTube money off of things like that too.
Okay, no, that is great to know. So no like Grumpy Maestro or as opposed to Grumpy Cat.
I'm not saying you shouldn't try it, but one thing I should say there too is I think the biggest thing is remaining relevant and on people's minds. the biggest thing is you don't want to disappear and then suddenly pop up when this is all over. And I think what all of us are trying to do is how to remain connected with our audience and knowing that's going to be in different ways. And, you know, for us, a lot of it is we know people just need escape right now and need some other things that aren't watching the news and maybe some things they can learn a little bit from. And sometimes it's just purely just to have something that they enjoy.
So there's a very successful Silicon Valley venture capitalist named Mike Maples Jr. And I read a lot of what he writes, and he says when he's looking to invest in a startup, he doesn't look for startups that are looking to carve up the existing market. Instead, as he puts it, he wants to look at startups that can see the future. What do you see? I mean, what is the future, do you think, in all of this?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. It's the one we're all wrestling with right now, and it's the one that makes it so hard to kind of project going forward. I think the one thing that at Philbrook that we believe is that the museum that we reopen will not be the same one that we closed. It's going to be different. Now, how exactly it's going to be different, I think that remains to be seen. I think there's certain things that we can project and certain things we anticipate. And for us, we were moving in a certain direction before all of this that I see as we come out of it is going to align well. And that is being more collaborative, both internally and also externally with our partners. It's looking a little bit more locally. We know that, you know, travel and bringing artists from all over the world is going to be limited for a while. So how do we look in our backyard, support those artists and bring in artists that maybe in the past that we've overlooked? And we can really use this as an opportunity to do that. We're going to have to be more nimble, and that means we'll probably be a bit smaller, but in that, be more resilient. So when the next crisis comes, that we're able to weather it maybe better than we have this one. We're learning a lot from this period of time. And I think the other thing is that how are we relevant to our community? This is the thing that matters the most, is we should be relevant now that we're providing something that people need, and knowing that when this starts to kind of reopen, people are going to remember us and come back. And we feel that they definitely will do that. And the last thing I'll say there is that I think what's really important, what we're focusing on right now, is that how and why are people going to come back, and what are those factors to make them want to come back sooner? And so what we're focusing on is that we're lucky to have an outdoor space. So we're going to lean on that heavily over the coming years, that people can kind of space themselves and be more in that outdoor environment. But this is it, and I've been saying this to my staff too. Content's secondary right now. As we reopen, it's going to be about safety, it's going to be about people feeling welcome, and it's about public trust. So if we can have all those three things in mind, and being in a state that's trying to reopen now on the early side of things, it's really keeping that in mind, that if we don't feel like our guests are safe, that we can uphold that public trust, we're going to hold until we feel that we can do that. And if we are a place that's welcoming and safe, people are going to choose to come back to us sooner than other places. And then the content will come secondarily to that. And eventually that will kind of weave into it. But I'm convinced that we can have blank walls, and if we're a really safe place, people will still come at this point. It's maybe a little extreme, but I think that's really something that we're focused on. And then kind of, you know, coming full circle, we were really trying to create an audience-centered museum so that people feel inclusive, they feel welcome, they feel like it's a place that they can come and be with their families and enjoy. And that just kind of actually goes into overdrive now as we go forward.
Content comes second. I never thought I would hear that. But it makes, I mean, you know, blank walls, you know, there's something sort of Dada about that, right? Like you could probably.
Yeah, I'm not actually saying we're going to do that, but I think it's something just to think about, is that in the priority of how people are going to come out to things, the first thing to check is like, are you going to feel safe there?
I think your vision of the future used words like community, local, collaboration. I think it's no surprise to know that we here at the Tessitura Network are big on community and collaboration. A lot of people may not know that Tulsa is an incredibly vibrant and collaborative arts and cultural community. It's stunningly rich, especially given its size. You are actually also the president of the Tulsa Arts Management Consortium, which is a consortium of Tessitura organizations. So collaboration is, I know, a big part of your vision overall. I wondered if you could talk a little bit about how collaboration is working for you in Tulsa right now.
Absolutely. I mean, I feel very fortunate to be an incredibly collaborative community. And we have the arts leaders in town and cultural leaders. We all worked together prior to this, and we did a lot of things where we shared resources and did major collaborations with one another. And then, of course, the Tessitura Consortium is a big part of that. What has also come out of this particular crisis is that we've formed a group, both the steering committee of some of the larger cultural attractions in town, but also a bigger group that encompasses about 30 different organizations. And we're having multiple phone calls a week. And we're sharing information, we're sharing plans for reopening, we're sharing things that we're hearing from our audiences, we're sharing our concerns, sometimes just commiserating. But it's a way that we're having this collaboration where we're truly sharing things that I think in the past maybe would have been held a little tighter. And that's been incredibly valuable. And it's something that I really anticipate will continue well beyond this, because it's something that has been so helpful. And we're coordinating with the city in all of this too. So as we're making moves, like for example, for reopening, we're doing it in sync. So we're having some of the same guidelines for audiences coming in across these organizations, the same basic timetable across organizations, and how we can even do some joint press releases about things that we're doing. And it makes it so much easier to message and to be able to enforce with our audience. And I also know that, and I think this is in every city, we know that our audiences and our supporters kind of overlap like this.
Yeah.
So they like when we get along. What do you think?
Have you, either in the past or considering it in the future, just given the beautiful spaces that you have, looked at collaborative artistic ventures at all?
Absolutely. And one I'll even call out that we did 2 years ago. So the Tulsa Ballet is one of the top ballet companies in the whole country. And we did a project together. And instead of just bringing a ballet piece to the gardens at Philbrook, we actually did it collaboratively. They did the choreography and the costumes, we did the music and the set. And we had an artist on stage painting while the dancers were moving around on a platform. And we did this true collaboration between the two of us. So we're looking that in the future how we can do more of those with other organizations. And Philbrook has been a very collaborative institution prior, and I see going forward to be even more so. And I think this is really true, is like as we go forward, and one of those things for the future is that we can't go it alone. We need to find more ways that we can work with one another, share resources. And this is particularly true in a mid-sized city like Tulsa, where it makes a lot more sense for us to do some things together.
You talk about collaborations with other cultural organizations like ballet companies. Any sort of non-traditional or a collaboration that one wouldn't necessarily think of right off the top?
Oh, I've got all sorts of ideas. I think the natural ones is like we're looking at a lot of things in food, culture, so ways that we can kind of do some crossovers there with chefs. And we've actually been doing a happy hour on Fridays, a virtual one. We're teaching people how to make drinks, and we've been having chefs come and teach people how to make like a Sunday meal for Sunday evening. We've been doing some of that during this period already. We have this kind of natural overlap with kind of food culture there. But we've done everything from partnering with bookstores and comic book shops. And we have a current show that didn't get to open. We hope to open here when we come back. That was called Tulsa Collects. And we actually sourced a whole bunch of people's collections from the community. So, and the odd things like people's like Simpsons collection, and so it wasn't just like art collections.
Right.
And so I think out of this, there can spin a whole lot of ideas at different places and people that we can collaborate with that you may not think that's the natural fit for an arts and culture organization. And I think it's being very, very open-minded about that. We did a program a couple of years ago that we worked with a lowrider car club, for example, and had a lowrider picnic out front on the front lawn for a Chicano art show that we did with Cheech Marin. So it can be a lot of different ways, and part of it is getting out in the community and really looking for those things that aren't the obvious ones.
Yeah, well, it's those all. I mean, I wish I lived in Tulsa. I would love to live every last one of those, or had a transporter. Just before I get to my last question, something we were chatting about earlier. It seems like you have a little latitude being, not in New York City or in what you think of as a world arts city, to try out some things like this. Is that you have thoughts about?
It's true, and I feel lucky that I'm not a typical director in a lot of ways because I come from a visual art background and as a maker, and less as an art historian. I think it gives me a little bit different perspective, but I also think being in Tulsa and kind of how we approach the museum is a bit different too. And what I tell our staff often is that this is the advantage of being in Tulsa. So if we do something really cool and get out there like cat pen pals, like it gets picked up internationally and people will notice what we're doing. We can have a huge impact outside of Tulsa. And if we screw up or something fails, nobody's watching. And that's one of the advantages of being in a place that maybe isn't under the same kind of lens as a New York or an LA.
Yeah. So my kind of hate to do this, but my last question is sort of an unfair one, but I think kind of an important one. This moment in time, the world is focused on health, rightfully so, keeping people alive, keeping people safe, propping up an economy that's gotten battered and bruised, and it seems like there's this discussion going around the halls, the virtual halls of arts and culture that tends to have the word existential in it. Mm-hmm. So in this moment where we're really, as a world, having to think about safety and health first and economic security, why do museums matter right now?
It's the right question. And I think it's the question all of us are asking. And I think it's also partly even going back to when we did our Fill the Gaps campaign, the first thing we needed to address is what are those real needs that people have? So that's giving to healthcare workers, that's being able to provide some food security for people. It's thinking about how artists are supporting themselves. So thinking about those things first and what as a museum we can do to kind of meet some of those needs. And every institution would have to answer those differently. But for us, those are ways that we could kind of address some of those really true, pressing, real needs. But beyond that, and to this question, we need art now more than ever. And I think when you think about why do we support arts and culture organizations? Why do we go to a ballet? Why do we watch a film? Why do we go to an art exhibition? Those are things that bring us joy. They bring us happiness. They bring us escape. They inspire us. They make us healthier. They contribute to our mental health. They're things that challenge us. And those are all things that we need now. And those didn't just go away because we went into quarantine. They're just being met in different manners. So we're finding different vehicles. And for us, it wasn't like suddenly our mission's on pause. We can't connect people anymore now. We're just going to shift over to this other platform and find a different way to do it. Is it going to look different? Sure. And I think when you're seeing this in the world, people are being very creative about this and realizing there's a need here that arts can do. When you see all the concerts that are popping up online of people doing these things in their homes and sharing their music, or if it's people going on their balconies in big cities and cheering on healthcare workers and singing off the fire escape, that's art. And it's coming up in all these different areas. And it's so important for us to be relevant now, to be able to give to our community when they need it most. And what's going to happen is when we reopen, and we will, people are going to come back. And they're going to realize that they needed that then, and we were there for them, and they're going to be there when we need them, because we're going to need them in the next few years. And I am convinced that everything we're doing now is going to come back to us many times over, because we were there when our community needed us, and our community is going to be there when we need them. So to answer that is we need more joy. We need more happiness. We need more cats that people can write letters to. And we need places that give us hope. And I feel like the arts do that.
I could not have said it better. Thank you, Scott. Incredibly heartfelt and I think spot on. So thank you. Yeah. Thank you for all of your thoughts and wisdom and vision and sharing what's working and what's not. We have a few minutes now for questions from our audience. So I will see if we have any here. Here is a question. I was interested to hear how you are meeting frequently with the other cultural organizations in Tulsa. Can you elaborate more about how that came together and who is managing that relationship?
Yeah, we're fortunate to have in Tulsa, we have this large new public park called Gathering Place, which is this kind of privately funded 50-acre park that's here in town. And Tony Moore, who's the executive director there, who's also on Philbrook's board, Tony kind of started pulling us together early on in this process, and we've been kind of gathering more and more organizations onto these calls that we've been having. So he's been kind of spearheading that and pulling it together, but we've all been kind of sharing kind of the load of bringing things along. And then we've created some shared drives where we're kind of having all of our reopening plans are being shared. All the information that we're kind of gathering from other organizations. And we have zoos and aquariums and performing arts organizations and museums and small cultural organizations in this. So across that span, we're all talking to different people. And we're on different calls throughout the week, and becoming one place that we can share all the information has been very, very helpful. And then recently we've added the city and Visit Tulsa into those calls as well. So we're getting kind of the city perspective too.
Oh, wow.
And I would recommend it. It's been really easy to do, but so helpful for us going forward. And it's allowed us actually to hold the line against some things that we thought were getting pushed a little too quick as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, I love the idea of, as you said, you have the same audience. I mean, even if it's, what is it, 1 million people in Tulsa, roughly?
Yeah, consider the big wide metro, yes.
Yeah. So, the fact that whether you're going to, a baseball game or the Philbrook, or, that you all have a consistent message.
Right.
Like,
and we're even on a practical level, we're looking at ways that maybe we can do joint orders for like PPE, for example. So if we need to get masks or sanitizers, we might have more purchasing power as a big group.
Yeah.
So we're looking at it on a practical level, but also on a bigger kind of, higher level as well.
That's great. Okay, we have another question. You've been so creative during this time. Are all of these ideas coming from Philbrook staff, or are you working with some outside organizations as well?
It's mostly coming from staff, but not exclusively. We are working with some artists and musicians and others that are bringing some of those ideas. But for the most part, the idea is being generated internally, and then we're kind of going out and finding somebody to partner with those things. But I will say we have been having some come to us as well. But it's probably about 75-25, internal versus external on all of it. I think the biggest thing is that we're getting ideas across the whole institution. It isn't just the curators or the programmers. We're having horticulturists come up and say, hey, I want to teach people how to grow a vegetable garden, and we'll do a video with that. We've had our prep crew do videos where they talk about how we built certain sculptures on our campus. So it's been coming from all different areas of the museum, and that is so encouraging. And I think it's also helped everybody feel that they're part of this and contributing going forward. It isn't just coming from a couple of areas.
And how do you, that speaks to institutional safety, right? As a culture that folks feel safe bringing up an idea, even if it's not practical or it's not chosen. Like, how, as a leader, how do you bring that across?
Yeah, I think you have to have trust. And I think it's something that we've been working on, to have trust across departments and trust between colleagues that are working together, and hopefully setting that tone at the top and knowing that it's okay to fail. There's no stupid ideas. Bring them all out, and and the best ideas are actually collaborative. They're little pieces of all bunch of ideas put together, and that we're willing to try things. And so, but I think a big thing that's come out of this is that the distance of working not next to each other in an office is forcing even more trust to come in. So we're having to basically say, like, I trust you that you're going to take care of this, or that, I trust that you understand the right tone for this program. And we've kind of removed a lot of some of the normal processes that we'd have in place to maybe ensure some of those things, and saying, like, you just run, I trust you. And you know what's happening? Really good things are happening from that. And it's allowed us to be more nimble. It's allowed us to kind of really, I think, be more creative. And I'm hoping that a lot of that continues after we come out of this.
Well, it reminds me of your very first point on that tweet that I introduced you with, right? Things are going to be faster, messier, and less overthought, I think is what you said.
Yeah, museums do that, as you know. We tend to think about it so much that the original idea becomes irrelevant.
The silver lining.
That's right.
Here's a question. How are you balancing the need to get content out without overwhelming your audiences? How are you making sure this content is what the audience wants versus simply putting out content to put out content?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think we've been kind of working through this, and because we've been moving so quick on things, those are some things that we're going to kind of recalibrate as we go forward. The initial thing was kind of just flooding a bunch of things out there and see what sticks. So we've been kind of going through that and seeing which things people are interested in, what has better pickup from it. The Family Art Club, for example, has had tremendous popularity and pickup from it. Some of the other things, like maybe some of our DJ sessions, were less so. So we're kind of shifting resources over to those areas. We also know as we go forward, it's really thinking about staffing, and we want to be able to support as much staff as we can have working on things here, but know that we can't burn people out either. We can't burn our staff out or the audience. So it's figuring out the proper pacing with things. And if you go on our website, you'll actually see we kind of have one a day, and we've kind of paced things out. The other thing is there's this initial need that you don't have anything, so you're trying to kind of create an archive. So we're using YouTube for that, and now we've kind of created an archive where we can go back and repurpose content and reuse it again. So we're in a different place now than we even were a couple of weeks ago. And so to answer the question, it's an inexact science we're trying to figure out right now, but we are trying to figure out how we can pace things a little better going forward.
So you mentioned burnout. And it's interestingly enough, the next question is, Scott, what are you doing to decompress personally during this time?
I'm surviving in our home with our two children. We have a 5 and a 9-year-old. And any of you that are parents that are managing this, of having a kid that's doing online schooling and another that's like a pre-K kid, and not trying to have them run through every single Zoom call that we're having. They're upstairs watching a movie right now, so that I could do this. So they're be right on top of me. I will tell you, every parent that's out there, you have all of my sympathy. It is so difficult right now managing this, and also managing it from a mental health standpoint. My wife's job is, she works from home and everything's online, so she's been the same pace. My job's basically tripled as amount of work. It's not gone down, it's actually gone up because of everything that's happening. So I think in all of that, it's to be kind of aware of your own psyche, and I think it's really easy, particularly any of you that are in a leadership position, to kind of be thinking about everybody else's needs but not yours last. And I know I need to take like a vacation day at some point here, like a real one, coming up, and be able to really think about that too, because I need to be there for my team, and I also need to set an example for them that they can take a day off too. And I think it's an interesting thing right now, because the days blend together. Our work and our home life are like intertwined in a way that it's hard to separate them. We go from like 15 minutes of home to 15 minutes of work. So you're like never off, and there's never an off time with it. And that has a certain mental load. And I know that I'm sure I share this with a lot of people out there, a certain level of exhaustion that I've never felt before. And you feel like you haven't done anything all day, but sit in front of a computer and you're just wiped out at the end of the day. So I think it's just something we all need to be aware of. And I think it's something to know that we can't do everything. And we're not, this is going to be a marathon. I think everybody knows this, but we're not going to be done with this in July. And we may be back, but we're going to be dealing with the impact of this for quite some time. And we need to be smart and be able to pace ourselves.
Yeah, no, I can't agree with you more. And please take a vacation day. I finally did that. I'm a pretty chill boss, I think. And I found I was starting to snap at people, which is just not something that I do. And I had a colleague tell me I needed to take some time off for a couple of days. And it was like, I didn't even realize how badly I needed it. And I think everyone else needed it for me to take a day off more than I did.
That's a good point. And I'll say my wife early on in this, I'm a big baseball fan. And one of the things that like hurt is when the baseball season was postponed. And then I actually play in a baseball league too. So it's like all of it was my social network got destroyed. So I went out and actually bought the Major League Baseball The Show game for PlayStation, and that's been kind of my replacement at night, is to be able to have that release there. But it's something that has nothing to do with work, and I think we all need to find those, whatever it might be.
Yeah, no, that's great. Something I know a lot of folks are thinking in this next question: for your indoor spaces, are you thinking about social distancing or capacity controls when you reopen?
Yes, absolutely. So we're in the process right now of doing all of our reopening plans. So we're planning the social distancing outdoors as well. So our plan, which is not official yet, and everything can obviously shift as we go forward, is looking at just the gardens in June and limiting it to 50 people, and then eventually moving into the indoor spaces in July and having similar limitations there based on the size of the galleries and space, and not opening the full indoor space at once. We're going to do it in sections and see how it goes, so it'll be incremental, so we can kind of figure out the pinch points, the problems there. We are going to strongly encourage and perhaps require masks. It kind of depends on where we are when that happens. Staff will be wearing masks, and we're providing those for staff. We're going to try to model good behavior there. And we're going down to like putting sneeze guards in for guest experience, how we can have no-touch ticketing. We're able to have sanitizer at the top and the bottom of every staircase, just thinking through the granular level of things too. And it's a lot of work. I know we're all doing it right now, but no, it's something that we are definitely going to have some limitations when we reopen.
Yeah. Another question, how does Philbrook's income during normal times break down percentage-wise?
Sure. So we have about an $8 million annual operating budget. So about 17% of that is from the endowment. We have another 25% or so that's earned income. And then the vast majority is through contributions. So that's foundations and individuals and through membership on that level. And so we are very much supported by people coming to the institution and using it. And so that's going to be a big challenge now. And we anticipate that being down, 20, 30% next year. We honestly don't know. The big two questions, and we just did a budgeting meeting yesterday. The big questions we don't know is when are people coming back and how will they come back right away, or is it going to take, how long is it going to take? And how are contributions going to come back? And those are the two factors I know we're all wrestling with. And so we've got, 7, 8, 9 different scenarios. And one way that we're going to look at it is even just for budgeting next year is looking at it in 3-month forecasts so that we can kind of adapt and change, because I can do a budget on Monday and by Friday it's completely outdated. So it's just, we know we're going to have different processes from a board level and from an institutional level going forward. My hope is this, is that if we can continue to help our community, serve our community going forward, that those contributions are going to continue to come in as people are able. But we also know that we're going to have to right size ourselves to the funding that's coming in for a period of time. And that's going to be hard. And anybody that says it isn't I'm not sure they're being truthful. I think we know that it's going to be difficult for the years ahead, but it also can be a time for us to reset and to think about what's truly important to our institution and what is truly needed in our communities. So I'm trying to, really focus on what are some of the positives that can come out of this during this time as well.
Yeah, no, it's a great way to finish our Q&A. I can't help thinking back to the fact that you're tripling the size of your victory garden, and I'm an analogy guy, and it just feels like you're planting all these seeds right now, right? And the hope is that they bloom into something amazing that can truly feed the community in many different ways.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And I got to say, the question pane has been kind of blowing up with thank yous to you for all of your wonderful insights. And I will add my own thank you, Scott, for being our very first innovator in conversation. Thanks for being our guinea pig or our guinea cat. I'm not even sure.
I am honored, and I do want to say to everybody out there too, is like any of the things that we're doing, any of the ideas, you have my full permission to steal and use them. I would be nothing more honored than if other people started doing them. So,
well, thank you for that. And if you can stay with us for just a moment, I'm going to announce next week's innovator. Another Midwestern organization. We are welcoming Annie Burridge, General Director and CEO of the Austin Opera, talking about some of the amazing first strides they're taking with digital in the age of COVID. So I hope, Scott, you can, now that you are a veteran,
yes, I'll be tuning in.
But I just, once again, I can't thank you enough. Thanks to everyone who has tuned in today, and I know many more will be watching once we post this recording, which will be soon. I hope you all have a great day wherever you are. Hang in there, and we will be back soon. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you so much.